Real English for your daily life.
Master English together.
Quick question. How many messages did you already reply to today before you even felt awake? I'm talking about the ones that start with "can you just" and somehow steal your whole evening.
Oh, that text has real power. One tiny favor request, and suddenly your brain is acting like a polite intern with no spine.
Exactly. And the worst part is how fast we say yes. We see the message, we feel the pressure, and before we even think, we've already typed, "Sure, no problem."
Then later we're exhausted, annoyed, and a little trapped. Not because the request was huge, but because we didn't give ourselves a buffer.
And that's the episode today. This is a B1 level episode, perfect for intermediate learners. Beginners, you are welcome too.
We're talking about why saying no in messages feels so awkward, even when you really need a boundary. And yes, a boundary can be kind. It just has to be clear.
That word matters. A boundary is a clear limit that shows what is okay and what is not okay. Most of us know we need one, but in a chat, our confidence just disappears.
Texting makes everything feel urgent. A simple request can seem like a tiny alarm bell, and then we start worrying about how we'll come across if we don't answer fast enough.
And if you're the person who says yes by default, this episode is for you. Not because you're weak, just because you've practiced being agreeable for too long.
We'll show you how to slow that moment down, create a little buffer, and sound upfront without sounding cold. There's one small shift that changes everything, and it starts before the actual no.
Quick choice. By the way, when a message pops up, are you more of a reply instantly person or a stare at it for 10 minutes person? Pick one in your head. No pressure.
Stay until the end for our word to our 5 expressions that'll help you set boundaries in real life, in actual messages, without sounding rude.
And later, we'll give you a tiny 2-step script you can use tonight. But first, let's talk about that awful moment when your thumb is already hovering over send. I kept thinking about one text I got at 10:48 p.m. Can you take a quick look at this? It was from a friend, and I was already half asleep. But I still felt my thumb go straight to sure.
Oh, that's brutally familiar. I've done the same thing with work messages, family messages, even that one friend who says quick like it's a magical word that erases time.
Exactly. And the weird part is that the request isn't always huge. The pressure is huge. Your brain sees the message, sees the expectation, and suddenly your whole body feels tense.
That's where the trap starts. You don't only answer the request, you answer the feeling of being watched, judged, or remembered as easy to ask.
Right, and that's why people say yes by default. It's not a thoughtful yes. It's a reflex. A social reflex.
Like your phone is a tiny courtroom and you're trying to avoid looking like the villain just because you need sleep.
I used to think the only good answer was a full yes or a full no, but in real life, there's a middle space. And that middle space is a buffer.
A buffer is a short amount of extra time or space that helps reduce pressure. So instead of answering instantly, you buy yourself 10 minutes, or an hour, or until tomorrow morning.
That tiny delay changes the whole emotional temperature. You stop reacting from guilt and you start choosing from clarity.
Let's make it practical. Imagine a coworker drops a task in the group chat at 5:55 p.m. They write, "Can you finish this today?" Your heart speeds up, and your first thought is, if I don't reply now, I'll seem unhelpful.
Then the old script appears. Sure, no problem. It's short, polite, and terrible for your evening. You've just said yes by default again, and now your own plans are the thing that gets pushed aside.
And then you're making dinner while checking a spreadsheet on your phone, which is a great way to feel resentful in two different time zones.
That image is too accurate. But here's the real issue. Many of us learned that being good means being instantly available. So when we don't answer quickly, we worry we'll come across as rude, selfish, or difficult.
That's the emotional knot. The message isn't just a message. It's a test of identity. You're asking, how will I come across if I protect my time?
And that fear can be stronger than the request itself. A small favor becomes a personality exam.
Let's slow it down with one simple idea: boundary scripts. A boundary script is a short, prepared line that helps you protect your time without improvising under pressure.
So instead of trying to invent a perfect answer while panicking, you already have a sentence ready. That way your boundary is there before guilt takes over.
It's like keeping an umbrella by the door. You don't build one in the rain.
Nice. And if you want the emotional version, a boundary is not a wall. It's more like a clear gate. People can still reach you, but they can't just walk through everything.
That distinction matters because a lot of listeners think saying no means being harsh. It doesn't. It can sound calm, decent, and upfront.
Upfront means honest and direct at the beginning, not dramatic, not cold, just clear from the start.
For example, if someone asks, "Can you help me move this weekend?" you don't need a 6-line apology. You can say, "I can't this weekend, but I can help next Tuesday." That's clear, kind, and it protects your bandwidth.
And if the person is disappointed, that doesn't automatically mean you did something wrong. Disappointment is not the same thing as damage.
Exactly. Some people react like your no has ruined the entire ecosystem. But often, they just needed a quick answer and moved on 5 minutes later.
I also want to name the guilt, because guilt is the thing that makes the whole pattern sticky. You hear the request, and your mind whispers, "If I say no, I'm letting them down."
That whisper is powerful and usually unfair. You're not refusing the person. You're refusing the timing, the load, or the shape of the request.
That's such a better way to hold it. Refusing a task is not the same as rejecting a human being.
And that's where the buffer helps again. It gives your emotions time to settle, so the answer doesn't come from panic. It comes from a place that's more grounded.
So the real skill is not become colder. The real skill is stop answering like a startled goldfish.
Perfect. And if you want to sound natural, you can use a tiny pause message first. Something like, "Let me check and get back to you." That one line buys you room.
That line is powerful because it doesn't over-explain. It doesn't promise yes. It just creates a buffer and protects your boundary while you think.
Then, once you've had a minute, you can decide what you actually can do. Maybe you can't help tonight, but you can do tomorrow morning. Maybe you can't take the task, but you can share a resource.
And if you've worried about how you come across, remember this. People usually respect clarity more than vague friendliness that turns into resentment.
Right. A vague yes can seem generous at first, but it often creates confusion later. An upfront answer saves everyone time.
And there's something deeply relieving about that. You stop carrying the secret burden of a promise you didn't really want to make.
Also, let's be honest. Half of these messages are written by people who are hoping you'll save them with your competence. They're not evil. They're just testing the water.
Which is exactly why a boundary script helps. It keeps you from being pulled into somebody else's urgency before you've checked your own life.
Let's do a tiny practice round. I'll be the person asking and you answer with a buffer first, not a full yes.
Okay, hit me.
Sarah, can you proofread this before midnight?
Let me check and get back to you.
Good. That's not rude. That's not cold. That's a pause with dignity.
Dignity sounds much better than panic typing.
Now the second move, if you can't do it, be upfront. I can't tonight, but I can look at it tomorrow morning. Short, clear, no drama.
And if you can't do that either, you can still stay kind. I can't take this on, but I hope you find someone soon. That's a boundary, not a breakup.
I love that. A lot of us act like every no needs to sound like a courtroom speech, when really it just needs to be plain and calm.
And when you practice that calm tone, the fear starts shrinking. You realize you're not losing warmth, you're just stopping the automatic yes.
One more thing. The people who truly care about you usually adjust. The people who only like your availability may need a little time to get used to the new version of you.
That part can feel sad, honestly, but it can also feel freeing because your message no longer has to contain your whole personality.
Exactly. A message can be kind without being porous. It can be direct without being harsh.
And by the way, there's a phrase for this pattern. It's called a boundary, and there are a few words around it that'll make the whole thing much easier. We'll break those down later.
Stay with us because the words themselves are simple, but the social effect is huge. Once you hear them in real conversation, they'll feel much less scary.
And in a minute, we're going to show you exactly how to use them without sounding like a robot or like someone writing an apology novel. So the big question is this. If saying no is healthy, why does it still feel so wrong in a message thread? For a lot of people, the fear is not the request, it's the reaction.
I think the fear is overrated. If someone respects you, they won't fall apart because you said no. A boundary isn't a crime. It's just information.
That sounds clean on paper, but real life is messy. When you're tired, emotional, or already known as the helpful one, a blunt no can come across as cold, even if you don't mean it that way.
But that's exactly why I want people to be upfront. If you keep pretending you're available, you train everyone else to expect instant access. Then your life starts running on other people's timing.
I get that, but being upfront doesn't always feel safe in the moment. Some people are afraid that honesty will sound harsh, and they don't want to become the person everyone avoids.
Here's my pushback. If you're always softening everything, you never give people a clear signal. They keep asking because your reply says maybe, even when your body says absolutely not.
Your body says absolutely not is a very accurate line, by the way. But here's the issue. Not everyone has the same power in a relationship. A junior worker, a younger sibling, or a new friend may feel they can't be direct yet.
That's fair, but then a buffer becomes useful. You don't need a dramatic speech. You can buy time, think, and answer with control instead of panic.
A buffer helps, yes, but it also has a social job. It stops the other person from feeling shut down instantly. That matters because people don't just hear your words. They hear the tone, the timing, and the silence around them.
And that's why I think a boundary script is stronger than improvising every time. If you decide your line in advance, you stop saying yes by default just because the message arrived at a bad moment.
I agree in theory, but I want to challenge one thing. Sometimes say yes by default is not just habit. It's survival. In some families or workplaces, people punish hesitation, so the automatic yes becomes a shield.
That's a good point. But even then, a shield can turn into a cage. If you never question the automatic yes, you don't get to choose when your energy goes and when it stays with you.
So you're saying the goal isn't to become harsh, it's to become deliberate. That sounds much better than just telling people to toughen up.
Exactly. Deliberate is the word. If you are deliberate, you can be kind and still protect your time. You can sound human instead of sounding like a broken yes button.
A broken yes button is painfully accurate. But let me push again. What if the request is small? What if a friend says, "Can you look at this for 2 minutes?" People feel silly making a whole boundary speech for something tiny.
That's where the real trap is. Tiny requests become a pattern. Today it's 2 minutes, tomorrow it's 20, and suddenly you're carrying invisible labor nobody named.
You're not wrong, but I still think tone matters more than your framework admits. If the language sounds abrupt, people may focus on the sting and miss the limit entirely. Then the message comes across as rejection, not clarity.
So use a softer opener, not a softer boundary. That's the distinction. You can say, "Let me check and get back to you," and then give a real answer later. The first line creates a buffer. The second line gives the boundary.
Right, and that also protects your relationship. Because if you answer too fast while stressed, you may promise something you resent later. That resentment doesn't stay invisible forever.
Exactly. And resentment is expensive. It eats attention, patience, and sleep. I'd rather have one slightly awkward message than 3 days of silent frustration.
That resonates because a lot of people don't notice the cost until they're already drained. They think they were being generous, but actually they were just postponing their own discomfort.
So here's the real debate. Is it kinder to be instantly agreeable or kinder to be honest early? I vote for honest early because clarity prevents bigger damage later.
And I vote for honest early with a little emotional intelligence. Not every truth needs to hit like a hammer. A boundary can be firm and still feel respectful.
So we actually agree more than we pretend. You want the message to land well. I want it to land clearly.
That's it. Clarity without cruelty. That's the middle path. And if people remember that, they can stop treating every message like a test they have to pass.
Before we move on, let's name the core shift one more time. You're not asking, how do I disappear the conflict? You're asking, how do I answer without abandoning myself?
And that question changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you stop saying yes by default just to avoid a moment of awkwardness.
And by the way, there's a phrase for that automatic yes, and we'll break it down later in our word tour.
So stay with us, because in a minute, we're turning this whole messy feeling into 5 simple phrases you can actually use. So we've got the problem, the pressure, and the back and forth. Now it's time to turn that messy feeling into usable language.
Right, because once you know the pattern, the next step is learning the words that make it easier to name it.
We're talking about 5 core expressions that show up in real messages, real tension, and real life.
And in the word tour, we'll unpack each one with short, natural examples, so you can sound clear without sounding harsh.
So this is the part where the messy feeling turns into usable language. We kept circling the same problem in the story, and now we can name the pieces.
Right, because once a phrase has a name, it stops feeling like a mystery. It becomes something you can actually grab in the moment, not just admire later.
Let's start with boundary. Not as a big dramatic wall, but as a clear limit. In messages, a boundary says what's okay, what's not okay, what your energy ends.
Exactly. A boundary isn't rude. A boundary is information. If a friend sends a late-night favor, your boundary might be, I can't help tonight. Short, clear, finished.
And notice how that feels different from over-explaining. When people explain too much, the message starts wobbling. The limit gets buried under apologies, and then the other person doesn't really hear it.
Yeah, the limit gets dressed up in 10 layers of politeness and still somehow looks nervous. A clean boundary is simpler, and usually kinder too.
Then there's buffer. This one is so useful because it gives you space before you decide. A buffer is a little extra time or room that lowers pressure.
In a message thread, a buffer can sound like, let me check and get back to you. That line doesn't promise yes. It buys you breathing room so you don't react on autopilot.
And that matters because pressure makes people rush. The second you feel watched, your brain wants a fast answer. A buffer slows the moment down and suddenly you can think again.
It's the difference between panic and choice. Panic replies fast, choice replies well.
Exactly. Now up front, this one is about being honest at the beginning, not after the other person has already built a whole expectation in their head.
If you're upfront, you don't hide behind vague language. You say the limit early. I can't take this on tonight, but I can do tomorrow morning. That's upfront, direct, and still polite.
And upfront is often less painful than delay. When you wait too long, the other person feels confused later and you feel cornered. Early honesty saves both sides from that weird emotional chase.
Also, upfront doesn't mean harsh. People often mix those up. You can be upfront with a warm tone, and that's usually what makes the boundary easier to accept.
Next is come across. This one is about perception. It means how you seem to other people, even when your intention is totally different.
Right, you might think, I'm just being efficient. But you could come across as cold if the message is too abrupt. Or you think you sound careful, but you come across as unsure. Because every sentence is full of extra apologies.
That's why wording matters so much in text. There's no voice, no face, no little smile to help. The words have to do all the work, so the tone has to be intentional.
Text is ruthless like that. It can turn a perfectly decent person into a maybe they're mad at me mystery in 3 seconds.
And finally, say yes by default. This one is the pattern we want to interrupt. It means agreeing automatically, without really choosing first.
That's the habit a lot of people live in. A message comes in, and the old reflex says yes before your actual opinion shows up. You're not deciding. You're just obeying momentum.
And that's why the two-step move works so well. First, create a buffer. Then, if needed, answer up front with a boundary. That tiny pause stops the automatic yes from running the whole show.
Let's make it real. Friend text. Can you help me real quick? Your autopilot says yes by default. Your new script says, let me check and get back to you. Then, if you can't do it, I can't tonight, but I can tonight, but I can tonight, but I can tomorrow morning.
Or the group chat version. I can't take this on tonight, but I can review it tomorrow. That sounds human, not icy. It gives structure without drama.
And if you're worried about how you'll come across, remember this. Clear isn't cruel. Most people relax when they know where they stand.
Right. And that's the real win. You're not becoming a different person. You're just giving your honest answer a better shape.
So if you've been saying yes by default, start with one buffer phrase tonight. That little pause can change the whole conversation.
And if your thumb is already racing toward sure, maybe give it a tiny timeout first. So, today's big idea was simple, but not easy. You don't need to answer every message the second it arrives, and you don't need to sound harsh to protect your time.
Right. The pattern we named was say yes by default, and the fix was to slow that reflex down with a buffer, then answer upfront with a clear boundary.
I still remember the first time I tried that. A friend asked for help late at night, and my usual response was already half written. Then I paused, checked my energy, and sent a calm reply the next morning.
And that's the point. You didn't become rude. You became deliberate. A short delay gave you room to choose, instead of just reacting out of guilt.
If you want to try this tonight, here are 3 tiny moves. 1. Don't answer the second you feel pressured. 2. Use one buffer phrase, like, let me check and get back to you. 3. If needed, give one clear line that says what you can do.
And keep it short. The longer you talk, the more likely you are to weaken your own message. Clear text often feels kinder than nervous text.
Also, watch how you come across. If your goal is respect, not perfection, your message can be simple and still sound warm. You're not writing a speech. You're protecting your energy.
So try one message this week. Just one. Pause, breathe, and answer like someone who has a choice, not like someone trapped by habit.
Before you go, we want to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what's one message you've been afraid to say no to?
We read every single comment. Thanks for listening, and if this episode helped you, use one boundary script before the weekends.
Next time, we'll keep building your real-life English with another everyday situation that feels awkward at first and gets much easier once you have the right words.